So what if your government could do everything? Well, except take action. In Federalist number 20, James Madison and Alexander Hamilton finished their history lesson by showing how the Dutch Republic, which was once rich and powerful, rotted from within because its federal system had grown too weak to govern. And so they put out a warning. And that warning was, a confederacy that depends on good intentions instead of good structure is doomed, no matter how noble the people are. So I'm Matt Hasquin. I'm a high school history teacher, and we're going through the Federalist Papers together one by one, and we're on number 20 on our way to number 85. And, well, by the time Madison and Hamilton wrote this essay in 1787, the Netherlands had once been this model of liberty. It fought off Spanish rule, it thrived on trade, and it built one of the world's most advanced economies. But beneath all that prosperity, its government was rather hollow. Every province within it had veto power. Every major decision required unanimous consent. And foreign powers began playing the provinces against each other, kind of like, pieces in a board game. And so to Madison and Hamilton, this was kind of a deja vu. It was like a European version of America under the Articles of Confederation. So they created this core argument, this thesis, and it was pretty simple. It basically said, the Dutch Republic looks stable, but it isn't. So behind its wealth and its culture, there was a fatal flaw, and that was that there was no central authority strong enough to make sure that the laws were obeyed. They called it a government that acts by compact, not by power. And that, they warn, is not a government at all. It's just a negotiation that's pretending to be law. Now, the Dutch system was governed by something called the States General. It was a federal council that represented the 7 provinces. And each province had one vote, and any one of them could veto a national action. Local assemblies had more authority than the federal body that united the provinces, and the result was often gridlock or confusion, or just this series of constant backroom diplomacy. And this is, if you know anything about the Articles of Confederation, this should sound kind of familiar. It's basically the Articles of Confederation, just throwing some windmills and canals, and now it's got a Dutch flavor to it. Now, Madison and Hamilton in the essay attack the Dutch for the use of the veto as this constitutional poison, small c constitutional, like a plan of government. And they note that even when the majority agreed on reforms or defense, one province could just block everything. And since unanimous consent was required, foreign powers learned that they could pay off just one province and paralyze the entire system. So effectively, a single bribe could bring the nation to a halt. So, by referencing the Dutch example, Madison and Hamilton were warning their own readers, this is us. America in 1787 was already showing some of the same symptoms: paralysis, jealousy, and vulnerability. Foreign creditors refused to issue loans. States ignored the Confederation Congress. And no one could enforce the law without unanimous consent. So this Dutch disease had crossed the Atlantic. So Madison and Hamilton point out this tragic irony then, that the Dutch Republic began as a rebellion against tyranny, against the Spanish, and it ended up as a prisoner of disunity. They write, the Hamilton and Madison, they write that this system has been found inadequate to the preservation of the Union. Liberty, is what they're going to argue here, is not preserved by weakness, it is preserved by energy in government. Power, when properly designed, protects freedom by keeping the chaos in check. So, number 20 ends the historical trilogy of 1819-20 with one final lesson. Every confederacy that relies on the goodwill of its members and not the rule of law has collapsed. It collapses. Greece fell to Macedon. Germany fractured under all this foreign meddling, and the Netherlands stagnated under veto and indecision. America, according to these two, stands at the same crossroads. Either strengthen the Union or watch it crumble. So, our chain of reasoning for this particular episode, doing your homework. 1, the Dutch Republic's system required unanimous consent. 2, unanimity created paralysis and bribery. Unanimity is one of my favorite words. My students can never say it. Foreign powers is the third thing. Foreign powers exploited division to control policy. The fourth one was liberty decayed under the weight of weakness. And then 5, the Constitution fixes all this by replacing voluntary compliance with binding law. There's the summary of Federalist number 20. There, in this tone, in the tone for this, it's almost exhausted here. You know, it's as if Madison and Hamilton are saying, how many examples do you need? We need the Constitution. So they've walked the readers through these centuries of failure with these historical examples. The evidence is overwhelming in their eyes. Without enforcement, law is a dream. Without unity, freedom is a myth. And so this essay closes the door on the old world's mistakes. The Constitution, according to these two guys, must open a new door. And that's really the beauty, the crafting of Federalist number 20. It feels quite modern. The pattern it describes, divided governments paralyzed by vetoes, foreign influence over domestic politics, endless gridlock. This is one every republic. These things are all things that every republic risks repeating. And Madison's lesson, it still resonates, that democracy isn't about everyone agreeing. It's about everyone agreeing to obey the same rules. So the moral of the story here is that the founders weren't calling for a centralized tyranny. They were calling for a system with enough strength to survive its own freedoms. The Dutch Republic proved that liberty without power is like a ship without a rudder. It's noble, but it's doomed to fail. And so the Constitution, these guys believed, was the missing rudder needed. Now, the takeaways here, the Dutch Republic, the Dutch Republic's unanimity rule turned liberty into paralysis. The second one is that foreign interference thrives when unity falls apart. And then 3, the Constitution replaces wishful cooperation with real governance. So, Federalist number 20 closes Madison and Hamilton's history of warnings. From Greece to Germany to the Netherlands, every failed confederacy showed the same flaw. A love of independence that destroyed interdependence. And so for the founders, the message was unmistakable. If America wanted to be free, it just had to be functional. So I'm Matt Hasquin, and this is another of those things we should know by being alive. This is Federalist number 20. And if this helped you see how the Constitution was shaped by centuries of failure, let's share it, follow those kind of things. Leave me some comments. I need some support. But stay tuned. I'm going to go ahead and prepare Federalist number 21. And this is where Hamilton opens a new chapter. He begins shifting from history to design. And he begins explaining how the new federal system will actually work. Thanks for taking the time. If you've made it to the end of the video, I really appreciate it. And we'll see you down the line.